whatever you do, do not buy this book. It's called Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. It's co-authored by NBC News' Jonathan Allen and The Hill's Amy Parnes. And even though it has some really juicy details about how the White House tried to cover up Joe Biden's decline, it makes me want to gnaw through my elbows. We'll get to that part in a sec. Now, my actual elbows. But before we do that, let's get to some of those juicy details. And, oh, by the way, I'm Steve Green. This is Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, these details come courtesy of a write-up in The Hill from Monday of this week. They say after the debate with Trump, Biden needed fluorescent tape taped on the floor to guide him through a fundraiser at New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy's house. And apparently the fluorescent tape was a pretty common tactic they used because Biden couldn't always find his way around the White House, but he knew to look for the tape. I'm not making this up. And he needed a teleprompter at this little tiny fundraiser just to speak to the small group of people there. He still managed to, he still managed to trail off frequently during his scripted remarks. There was also the time that Congressman Eric Swalwell, I hate mentioning that guy, but I have to. Eric Swalwell had to basically tell his life story to get Biden to remember who he was. This was at a White House picnic. Kamala Harris even had a planning team. It was led by Jamal Simmons, and that was her White House communications director, who put together a death pool roster of federal judges for quickly swearing Harris in case Biden suddenly checked out. Scott, with all of that going on, and a lot of this in full view of the press, I mean, you can't miss fluorescent tape on the floor. How did Washington reporters like Parnes and Allen ever miss the big news that Biden was unfit?
I don't know that anybody missed it.
Yeah. But they're reporting it like it's news. Oh, This is our big scoop. This is our big fight book.
I think there are two major phenomena here.
Okay.
One is that we tend to not pick up on things that are unthinkable to us. So, it's just like denial for an addict. Over time, you just like, you can't, you want to believe it's not true about yourself or about your loved one. And so you just kind of shut it out. And it's not necessarily any kind of nefarious scheming thing, but it's just more like, I can't imagine that this is actually the case, so I can't see it. The other is more conscious, and that is looking at the situation as it is and saying, oh my goodness, this is horrible, but the alternative, if we report this, if this becomes noised about in the nation, people may demand action, and the alternative to what's happening now could be even worse, which I think says more about what people think of Kamala Harris than it does about
fair point.
What they think about Joe Biden. And as for our buddy Eric Swalwell, I'm afraid that Eric Swalwell is going to spend most of the rest of his days telling people his life history, hoping to jog their memory that they'll remember who he is.
No, I hope that guy ends up forgotten. I keep trying to, but then I'll wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweat and all the rest going, oh my God.
I was Swalwell free up until about 2 minutes ago, and I blame you.
Oh, I envy you, and I'm sorry I ruined that for you. All right, let's get back to these juicy tidbits, because this one is my absolute favorite from the Hill write-up. It said, to cover up the physical signs of Biden's aging, a makeup artist met with him in the morning when he traveled. The artist also covered up aging signs before Zoom calls with his aides. Biden consistently made these makeup appointments, but he sometimes canceled the briefings that were to follow. All made up and nowhere to go. Bill, this one tickles me because Biden's vanity has always been comical, but doesn't that tidbit just put it over the top?
It makes me want to chew my elbows off.
It really does.
Well, first of all, as to his vanity, you have to be a certain age individual to remember when Joe Biden was apparently patient zero for that first generation of hair transplant plugs that make you look like a demented doll, back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Rush Limbaugh referred to him as Plugs Biden.
Is that right? Yeah. It was not.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good look. All of this is tragic, and it keeps begging the same question. So I'm just gonna ask it again. Somebody was performing the duties of President of the United States, and I think at some point in the future, it might be nice to know who that was. If I had to guess, I would suppose that most of the day-to-day trivia of the office was basically Jill holding his hand and telling him he did a good job because he answered all the questions. But it really does make you wonder who made top level decisions for this individual. I have to tell you, Steve, that one takes the cake. The idea that you would do the makeup bit and then cancel the press brief, not the press briefing, because God knows we didn't see any of those, but the Zoom call or whatever the case may be. And what does that say too? If it turns out that you have to have the president in makeup so that he can talk to his own aides on a Zoom call, this is going to go down as one of the biggest scandals in American history, and I knew it. And it's the thing about the first half of the 2020s is going to be everything that we believed was about virtually everything was correct, and everything that they told us was wrong.
A lie.
Just plain a lie. Yes, exactly, a lie. And this goes from things like did the coronavirus come from a wet market, or did it come from the Wuhan virology lab just 100 yards down the road? We knew this stuff in March or April of 2020, and we were called conspiracy theorists and deniers and all the rest of the stuff. I saw a segment by Victor Davis Hanson. Doesn't apply directly to the Biden thing, but he wouldn't have likely president otherwise, where they've just revealed that in the notes that they found from Pfizer was going to announce that the vaccine was available and 100% effective. They were going to do this in October of 2020, and they delayed it because they didn't want Donald Trump to say Operation Warp Speed has succeeded. We are about to try a brand new vaccine that has been declared by the manufacturers to be 100% safe and effective. They delayed it so that Biden could announce it in January. And when you get down to all of this stuff, the 4 years of the Biden administration are going to be seen as one gigantic criminal enterprise from the campaign to the aftermath, and we're still living with the aftermath. How many poison pills did he put into the economy, and how many spending bills? My segment this week is on Jon Stewart realizing the kind of restrictions that Biden put into his own legislation, so that nothing would ever happen. And all I can say, Steve, is that sense that every conservative, not even conservative, every patriotic American, I'll go even further, every open-minded American, when they've seen what's happened in the last 2 months, and they've seen how much money has been wasted, what it's been wasted on, when they've seen how fast things can move when we're not basically paying ourselves out of our own pockets if we're the political class, when we see the level of corruption and the level and how deep and how wide this goes, the sense that everybody has is this sense of waking up from a bad dream and back to a world where you can't just declare that I feel like a girl today, so I'm going to go set every female swimming record, in history. That sense that what was this? What kind of nightmare? What kind of mesmerism or hypnosis am I coming out of?
Yeah, it lasted for 5 years, almost 5 years.
And I still feel like somebody's going to say a code word like Pegasus, and I'm going to start clucking like a chicken. Like the whole thing was, some kind of massive hypnosis event that we all went through, and still trying to find a way out of it.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. That's the trigger right there.
There you go. Been hypnotized into wearing pants. I mean, not today. For what it's worth, I went through the last 18 months worth of Parnes reports for The Hill, and I found almost nothing about Biden's slow fate. She had one report. It was headlined, 5 Worries Keeping Biden and the Democrats Up at Night. And guess what wasn't one of the 5 items? His age. is obvious decline. None of that was mentioned. And that was in April of 2024. There was another report from the same month that briefly admitted, quote, cameras have caught Biden stumbling at times, end quote. That was the whole thing. But it was framed as yet another Republicans pounce moment. Republicans pounce on the fact that Biden stumbled getting out of Air Force One or whatever. Plus, at times, you needed that qualifier? I don't think so. And
Biden's steady at times.
Yeah, and I found even less reporting from Allen, zero, despite him serving as NBC's senior national politics reporter. It's shameful. So I have to wonder, like CNN during the Saddam Hussein regime, were Allen and Parnes afraid of losing their precious access to the White House if they reported the truth? Were they cogs in the DNC propaganda machine that insisted Biden was sharp as a tack right up until the debate and they couldn't get away with it any longer? Now, I don't doubt the Parnes and Allen were able to get plenty of juicy insider quotes and those little stories like the ones I shared with you to help sell their book. They're well connected, and now that Biden is safely office, it's safe for them to cash in on the story they somehow missed while it was fresh. But it's a reporter's job to break news, not to report stale gossip, and that's why I'm not going to buy this book, and I hope you don't buy this book. Fight might have been worth buying if it had any fight in it, but this is a limp cash grab that came too late to matter and is too stale to sell. Aside from a few gossipy details, it's old news. It should go straight to the remainder bin. That's your right angle on that. Brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.